Well, I think the obvious part of that is that the virus has meant everyone works from home. If you possibly can, you are at home and you're utilising the technology. And as part of what we as Thomson Reuters, particularly Thomson Reuters Regulatory Intelligence, have done, we've obviously looked at the regulatory response that has come out of practically every regulator you can name. They've all gone absolutely out of their way to try to help and support financial services firms through this incredibly difficult period. So what we've done around that is we've analysed out the regulatory answers and responses and reprioritisations, the forbearance that is there, and we've collated that into a Q1 report that rounded up all of those big responses. That's gone out free to air. Thomson Reuters itself has a coronavirus page with lots of our resources free to air. In addition, we've done a whole series of webinars called Experts Talk. We've done 4 of them so far. First one was on business continuity planning, which obviously has come into play big style as part of all of this. There aren't that many people, I would suggest, that had business continuity plans that envisaged practically the entire workforce working from home for months on end. A couple of days, yes, absolutely. Months, probably not. We then had one absolutely analysing the regulatory responses, and that went actually into quite a lot of detail of the UK regulatory response, because that's very much a bellwether for these sorts of things. We then looked at the ramifications of working from home, so that's both in terms of how do you look after your employees, mental health, all of those sorts of things. But then also, if you are perhaps risk and compliance officer, how do you continue to have line of sight to the risks you're running in your firm? It's very different, for instance, if you've got somebody trading at home than if you've got somebody trading on a trading desk in an office with all of the oversight that goes with that. And then the last Experts Talk webinar, which was back end of May, was on operational and conduct risks, because operational resilience is absolutely key at this point. And there's very much the sense that the firms that have focused on culture and conduct risk, in the sense they've truly tried to get that embedded in their firm, are going to come out of this crisis an awful lot better than those who haven't. Yeah, it's the 11th cost of compliance report, which is a little surreal because I've co-authored all of them. That's time marching on. Cost of compliance 2020, the survey closed before the global impact of COVID truly had become apparent. So what we are looking at in the cost of compliance report primarily are the challenges that were pre-COVID. Now, we've got a section in there all about COVID response and how to deal with uncertainty. But all of those challenges that 750 plus people, they haven't gone away. They really haven't gone away. And COVID is likely to make some of those profoundly worse. Now, just to give you a snapshot in terms of some of the challenges the board is likely to face, risk and compliance wise. First off, there is a real sense that there is an inflection point coming, in the sense that in the wake of the financial crisis, resources were simply thrown at risk and compliance. It was very much go fix things, make this better, make our regulatory problems go away, which is fine. Now, and it's very much the sense that the curve is levelling out, which is again a phrase we're hearing a lot at the moment. And that is the sense that whilst budgets and so on and resources allocated to compliance are still going up, they're not going up at anything like the same rate as they have been previously. Now, I would suggest this is the absolutely last situation in which you need to cut a risk and compliance budget, but there are competing priorities, absolutely, particularly in the economic downturn we're all going to see now. So that's one element from the cost of compliance. Other challenges, the sheer continuing volume of regulatory change, the rise of personal accountability. Accountability regimes are proliferating around the world. Ireland is thinking of doing something very similar to the UK. Hong Kong has got managers in charge. Australia has got their banking executive accountability regime. There's cooperation credit as the approach in the US. There is a big focus on personal accountability, and that is really sharpening senior managers' minds on this area. And then last but not absolutely not least is the need to implement and truly embed cultural change in financial services firms. Now, one of the real difficulties with that is how on earth do you measure how you've done with that, for goodness sake? I mean, it is a real qualitative area. So one of the questions we ask in cost of compliance is, to what extent have you discarded potentially profitable business propositions because of culture and conduct risk concerns? And this time around a third, 34% of firms, told us, well, actually, yes, in the last year, we've said no to potentially profitable business because it didn't meet our culture and conduct risk criteria. Now, I would suggest that's a really powerful indicator that a firm is doing something right, that its strategic decision-making includes those sorts of cultural and conduct risk concerns. I think there is going to be a very big focus on how you come out of lockdown. How do you come back out of the ramifications of COVID-19 around the world? I mean, the most obvious hotspot danger issue, if you like, is the economic downturn, the potentially profound economic downturn, and the impact that has on financial services firms. I mean, financial services firms still have to treat their customers fairly. They are absolutely obligated to carry on doing business with customers to the extent they possibly can. But their worlds, just like everybody else's, have been turned upside down. You need to make sure you have got line of sight to the risks you are running with people working from home. There is a very big focus on the need for, you could call it a post-pandemic review, to go back and look at all of the business that happened in your firm during COVID, and are you completely happy with that? Were you able to regulatory report on it? Does it make sense with regard to your management information? Does it make sense that you can evidence exactly how your governance continued to work during that time? And then to come back to the personal accountability point, given you will have senior managers who are individually accountable for compliance, continuing compliance in that business, how during COVID are you able to evidence that all of that happened? I think the other element that is likely to happen is that the regulators will have a post-pandemic review. And already the UK regulator has said, well, we've got all of this forbearance. We've had lots of people saying, actually, could we delay this? Could we delay that? For perfectly valid reasons. However, anybody we see who is trying to take advantage of this situation, we will make a note of that and we will come back to it after all of this is over. They have been crystal clear that they will absolutely help out firms left, right and centre. But anyone, individual or firm, who seem to be taking advantage of the crisis, there will come a reckoning. So be aware that all of that is stacking up whilst we are dealing with the day-to-day still. And then the last point, and whether or not this is a danger, I think will depend on individual firms, is technology. Everybody has jumped forward on technology. I mean, VPN's been rolled out, everyone's got a laptop at home. The capacity and capability of technology to truly enable flexible working is now proven beyond doubt, and firms have made it work and made it work really quickly. So I think the continuing use, and hopefully not abuse, of technology is going to be an area firms are very much going to focus on towards the end of the year. I think that is going to be really interesting, and I also think it is in firms' gift to influence. Firms have always lobbied, influenced, responded to consultation papers, whatever. But I think the experience of the pandemic, the invoking of business continuity plans, the increased use of technology will shape how firms would like their regulatory future to look. Now, if you're here in the UK, one of the issues that has perhaps not been top of mind, for obvious reasons just recently, is Brexit. But that's going to be a huge impact on financial services in the UK and potentially also in Europe as we work out how we split apart the rule books and the rule making that goes with all of that. So I think the regulatory landscape going forward is going to be very much more focused on operational resilience, not so much on financial stability, because I think that was the focus after the financial crisis. And I think most people would agree that certainly in terms of banks, that is a problem that has been fixed because the banks have much bigger capital buffers, liquidity requirements, all of that. They have actually stood pretty solid through all of this so far. So I think the focus is going to be on operational resilience. I think it's going to be on culture and conduct risk. I think it's going to be on how technology makes things easier and simpler and better, and how it enables firms to get rid of bureaucracy and potentially cost. So I think there's going to be a number of puzzle pieces that will move before they form an actual picture of the future regulatory landscape. But the one thing I would say to firms is engage with your regulator. Don't just say, oh, we're far too busy. I mean, whatever. If you want to have a voice in your regulatory future, respond to the consultation papers, get involved in the discussion conversations with the regulator. If need be, lobby. Go and shape your regulatory future, because it's going to take a quite distinct direction influenced by COVID. So you might as well help choose the direction.